This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Today, to talk about the insanity that took place in Ohio yesterday, or the insanity that led to the righteous victory in Ohio yesterday, is Ohio resident Cliff Schecter.
Oops.
Cliff Schecter, who apparently just loves to work. He has written books, or a book about McCain. He's a political consultant. He was an ad man for the Biden campaign in 2020. What have I missed? You're a frequent appearer on this particular dilapidated YouTube program.
Dilapidated, nicely done. I'm a roofer.
Nice.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not at all. If you want me to fix your roof, you'll have more holes when I'm done. I think Jesse's just being nice, because what he's trying to say is, Jesse's saying about himself, he's saying, I've had what you'd call a responsible career arc. And Cliff Schecter is the ADHD of careers, who jumps all over the place and seems to never settle. So, but no, I do appreciate the kind words. I am in Ohio, as you can see. I keep pointing to the wrong side. I've got my I voted sticker. So yesterday I went and I voted against this travesty of justice. And, to put it kind of modestly, we kicked its ass. So
let me ask a question. Am I right in how this went down? That in October, following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there was a poll that was done of Ohio voters in October of 2022. And
yes.
The result was 59% of Ohio voters were in favor of a constitutional amendment codifying the right to an abortion. Right?
You're 100% right.
Okay.
Yes.
And then further, only months later, remember that number, 59%. Only months later, this proposition was put forward by Republicans in the Ohio legislature that they wanted a threshold of not 59%, but 60% to amend the Constitution in the state of Ohio.
Where'd they come up with that number?
Yeah, right.
It's almost like they must have just picked it out of a hat. It had no significance.
Absolutely. And then to make matters worse, or more greasy and gritty and slimy, they decided to do it on an August special election, which only months before they had made illegal. I don't know if that's
correct.
Too harsh
but
a
no,
word.
But that's right. They had gotten rid of August elections here. The Republicans, who we have a super majority in our state legislature, because they're honestly a bunch of gerrymandered zombies who have no minds and don't care about anything.
Yeah.
They made it illegal because they wanted to save taxpayer money. Oh, but then suddenly,
right.
It's the classic Republican, make an argument forcefully and then go directly against that argument, weeks later, months later, when it's in your interest to do so.
So issue one...
We're for the rule of law, but Donald Trump should never be tried.
That's exactly right. So issue one was on the ballot yesterday. It was resoundingly voted down. But before, a lot of people probably don't know about this because it is a state-level political issue. But this is important because this would be a trial balloon for Republicans all across the country, in legislatures all across the country. And I want to show this brief 30-second ad that ran on Ohio TV for weeks, if not months, demonizing issue one, or the other side of issue one. And this is how they portrayed the issue in just lies to Ohio voters. Watch this.
You promised you'd keep the bad guys away, protect her. Now's your chance. Out-of-state special interests that put trans ideology in classrooms and encourage sex changes for kids are hiding behind slick ads. Don't be fooled. You can keep this madness out of Ohio classrooms and protect your rights as a parent by voting yes on August 8th. Keep your promise to her. Vote yes on August 8th.
Can I point out all the ways that's bullshit?
Please. That is why you're here. I mean, once the roofing is done.
I was here for my good looks.
Once the roofing is done, that's why you're here. So go ahead.
Okay. So, first of all, the out-of-state interests. So no. You may want to know that of the $4.85 million that the right-wingers spent on trying to take away our constitutional right to amend our ballots, first set in 1912, with a big speech by a guy named Teddy Roosevelt for all the reasons why we needed this because of corrupt interests. yeah. So the 4.85 million they spent. You want to guess how much Richard Uline and the Uline family, packaging family of right-wing assholes based in Illinois, who are out of state? At last I checked, Illinois was not in Ohio. Okay, so
Let me wait. Hang on. I got a map. I got a map here. Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
Illinois is not Ohio.
Right. Here's what also checks out. When you're attacking the other side for being special interest outside of state money in an ad like that, you want to check your math and say, what is 4.85 divided by 4, right? They spent 4 million of the 4.85 million, one out-of-state billionaire, to buy this thing for them. The way one out-of-state billionaire, Peter Thiel, dumped $30 million in here to buy a Senate seat for that little garden gnome, J.D. Vance, who in a race that was close till then, they bought that. This time they couldn't do it, and so what's incredibly important here is we have a massively gerrymandered legislature. We had a state Supreme Court tell them last election that it was too gerrymandered. They needed to fix it. They were in contempt of court multiple times, ignoring this court's ruling. And they kept making it a little bit better and a little bit better. So we did end up gaining one seat out of it, but we should have gained a lot more. And they kept slow walking it because the court wouldn't go so far as to throw these people in prison like they should.
You mean like the Speaker of the House of Ohio's State House?
Well, yes, we'll get to that. The last two speakers of the House of Ohio, Republicans, have had their homes and offices raided by the FBI. And the last one is now spending 16 to 20 in prison for taking utility bribes so that he could become speaker forever and get rid of term limits, but also to make us, the taxpayers, bail out these utilities that did terrible and spent their money like idiots and drunken sailors. Oh, and guess who was tied into that whole thing and also got $25,000 from First Energy, this group, and whose consultant for his super PAC works with them? Frank Larose, our Secretary of State, who was running the whole thing and now is running against Sherrod Brown.
Well, I'm so glad. I mean, it was inevitable that dumb shit Frank Larose came up, but I'm glad you mentioned him.
That's actually his full legal name, by the way. It's dumb shit Frank Larose. So I
actually think it's his middle name. We're all about the facts here on this show.
Dumb
Cliff.
Shit is my middle name. You remember? Sorry, Austin Powers. Go ahead.
So he was on with Steve Doocy this morning on the illustrious Real News program, Fox and Friends. And Steve Doocy was asking about these results that resoundingly, it looks like right now, I mean, with 95 or more % of the vote in, it's a 57 to 43 margin. And Doocy was asking him about this, and you will not believe the way he postured this. In my view, maligning the voters of Ohio, calling them all radical leftists. Watch this.
Yes, that's Ohio. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Check this out.
So your initiative would make it harder to change the state constitution. Right now, simple majority, 50% plus, but you wanted it 60%. That failed. What's Ohio telling you?
Well, I tell you what, 1.3 million Ohioans stood with us in another free and fair election. We released the results on election night. That's this thing we do in Ohio. Other states should check out. Proud to say that as Ohio's chief elections officer. But you're right, the other side prevailed. This is just one battle in a much larger war, though, because the all-out assault on Ohio is coming from the radical left. I mean, look at the tech billionaires from California and New York that funded the No campaign, and they've got other bad plans. This radical abortion amendment this November that takes away parental rights. They want to bring a minimum wage increase, a massive increase in minimum wage to Ohio that would put Ohioans out of work. And even the mayor of Cleveland said last week, he said the quiet part out loud, they want to do common sense gun reform, which means they want to disarm law-abiding citizens. So, yeah, we lost one battle, but the war continues, and I've just begun to fight.
You know what? Bring it on, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's I'm sorry.
No.
But, I mean,
that's his other middle name. It is Frank Dumb Shit Motherfucker Larose. Now, listen.
It was a little bit long to fit on the birth certificate, but they got it all in there, which is important.
They dropped the font to like 0.9. So listen, this I think to any discernible person watching this is Frank Larose calling the 1.744 million Ohio voters who voted against issue 1, calling them the radical left, when in fact it was a coalition of certainly leftists, liberals, moderates, and even liberal Republicans, people who didn't want this power grab, who do have some appreciation for democracy. Is that not right?
No, and I would even say, conservative Republicans who actually respect that this is like the current Republican Party, not actually conservative as in conserve, look at your traditions that have worked for you, but more like radical, like authoritarian, like borderline fascist. This guy wanted to do to us what's been done to the U.S. Senate, which is, no, you have 50 something votes, you have a majority, it's going to require 60. You're going to need 60%.
Yeah.
And this scumbag who's tied into this first energy scandal, he's in the emails that they were sending to each other. He hasn't been indicted for it, but he was close to this thing. This is a 60 something $1 million bribery scheme, again, that landed our state house speaker in prison. The radical, the last radical leftist I can think of to come out of Ohio was probably Sherman. He did some things, okay?
Well, listen, how far has the mighty state of Ohio fallen? You went from John Glenn to Jim Jordan. Come on.
Trust me. I know, because this used to be, a moderate state that was representative. And I'm telling you right now, when you look at things, we don't have the kinds of big cities like a New York or a Philly, that it gives you cities and suburbs to make up for those rural populations. But the reason we won this is blue collar voters in Northeast Ohio abandoned them. They're the ones that Trump appealed to with his lies about trade. And they're the ones that Sherrod Brown wins by appealing to, by telling the truth that he'll fight against unfair trade deals. Yeah. They're winnable voters. They've offended them. They've awoken a giant in the rest of us. We are a pro-choice state, the way Kentucky proved it was a pro-choice state. Kansas proved it was a pro-choice state. They are in the far minority of this, in some states under 40%, and they're trying to do what they always try to do with gerrymandering, with the filibuster, with the electoral college and everything else. They cannot win a majority, and they're too chicken shit to try to actually go out and make their case to people and win. So they'd rather hide behind a way to win as a minority. This is what they do.
So as Frank dumbshit motherfucker Larose said on with Steve Doocy, the fight is not over. He is correct about that. It is not over. This didn't amend the Constitution. This vote was only the mechanism by the rules set in the mechanism to change the Constitution. The fight is on to secure abortion rights for women all over Ohio. Give me 30 seconds. What's next?
Well, if I may call him dumb shit just for short to save time. Dumb shit, what he's talking about is we're going to have an election in November. It is going to be to codify abortion rights for everyone here. It's not some radical blah, blah, blah. Yeah, taking away parents' rights, like the rights of that 11-year-old who was raped and could not get an abortion here. The rights of her parents to decide what was right for their daughter. They take away parents' rights. The tech and, the tech people from Peter Thiel, a tech guy who supported this and supported JD Vance. Again, if they're saying something about us, they're talking about themselves. We have the majority. If people turn out the way they turned out in this election, we will kick their asses again in November, and like you saw with that state Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin, and we could have an enormous election next year that fixes finally many of our problems, brings us back to equilibrium. So we have at least sane people in control in most places instead of these lunatics.
Sure. Well, listen, if you are as good at roofing as you are measuring what 30 seconds is, I don't want you to help me with my roof. But having said that,
that was so harsh and yet so beautiful that I feel touched that you,
I would invite everybody, if you have a question about this, we're going to have Cliff back on. He's the new best friend of the program. 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email the old-fashioned way if you're a boomer, daily@dollemore.com. We welcome those boomer old-fashioned emails. If you want to help support the work here, you want to help produce the show here, click the join button, become a channel member, hit the super thanks button, or go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Follow me on social media. I am at Dollemore. Cliff, where can they find you, even though your handle and your link has been up on your lower third the entire time?
Well, you can see on the lower third there, right? So it's C. Schecter at YouTube. Please go there. You can find me at Cliff D. Schecter on Threads and at Cliff Schecter on Twitter. Any of those places you can get me to reach out to me, and maybe I will just come to your house and roof it.
Don't do it. Don't fall for it.
I will. No roofing, I promise.
I cannot endorse that.
Not in good conscience. You can't. It would Frank Larose you, kind of. You'd be a dumb shit.
That's right. Well, we will see you next time. Thanks for joining me, Cliff. For everybody else, be genuine.
My pleasure.
Take care of one another.